Y'all ever seen a team try to lose and they're so good they can't lose even when they try to lose? We're going to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am the host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, my man, Ross Jackson.
What's good, man?
That's right. Filling in for my man, Julian Council, who probably sipping on a little something on the plane right now, coming back from Munich. You know, his little raggedy team went over there and won two in a row.
He's still celebrating Oktoberfest in November. That's what
he is, man. I've been there. Trust me, I've been there, and he's right. They from age 8 months to 88 years, they'll be swinging beers over there in Munich. I'll tell you. Here's what we're gonna talk about today. Thank you, Arizona. Mm-hmm. We're going to really get into that one and tell you what that means. Monday Night Football preview will also come at the end of the show. Right smack in the middle. Christian McCaffrey came back, but the 49ers are not quite where they were. We're going to give them a little bit of room the way we did the Eagles, who we'll talk about around that same time. And the Lions try to lose, and they still win. Unreal, man. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase locked on NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Make sure you tune in tomorrow because that madman is going to be right back at it. Tyler Rowland with another great episode. Double shot of espresso. He'll give it to you in the morning and wake you up, and then I'll slide right back through the barbershop. Our new Locked On NFL show is right where you are right now. You can see it on YouTube, on our page, as well as wherever you listen or hear podcasts. I'm not going to waste any more time of your time, Ross Jackson, because I know you're the busiest man in the world. Maybe Chris Carter. Maybe Carter critiques.
Chris, I gotta get Carter.
Yeah. Chris got a lot of jobs, man. All right. Listen here, man. I was sitting there thinking, like, why are the Lions all of a sudden doing everything that I said don't do? Don't try to turn Jared Goff into Dan Marino. They did it and it bit them, but guess what? Ross, they still won the game.
They still won. They became the first team since 1970 to win a game in which they throw 5 interceptions and trail by more than 15 points, Tony. So not only was it the Dan Marino of it all, the Dan Marino-ness, if you will, of Jared Goff and all that, they also trailed. They also fell behind. I mean, Houston kind of racked up a little bit and all that, but man, this was a game that felt like it should have been a runaway for Houston, but looks like Detroit took it away.
It should have been. I want to hear from Matt Derry and from Locked On Lions and his jubilation. And then we'll hear from my man, John Hickman. I'm going to tell y'all something Big Sard said, too, who's also the co-host of Locked On Texans, that's going to teach all of us a lesson about trying to hire these play callers prematurely. But listen to what my man, Matt Derry said.
Folks, the Detroit Lions do it again, an improbable comeback, and they win 26-23 in Houston to go to 8-1 on the year. Best record in the NFC, still atop the NFC North by themselves as Jake Bates, the rookie kicker, kicks a 58-yard field goal to tie it at 23, then a 52-yarder skims through the left upright as time expires to win the game. The Lions win despite Jared Goff throwing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 interceptions. Yet this is what the Lions do. They find a way to win. And in the second half, they dominate the Texans, shut them out, and win 26-23 in come-from-behind fashion in Houston in what was a heavyweight fight tonight down in H-Town. Carlton Davis, a couple of interceptions. Lions defense coming up big. More coming up on Locked On Lions on a special Sunday night edition. Matt Derry with you. Lions win again to get to 8-1. They've won 7 in a row.
While I'm sitting there trying to figure out how can you allow a team to throw 5 interceptions and you don't win, it hits me, Ross, that I'm sitting there just thinking, like, screw all that. Have you ever seen anybody make 2 field goals and they both barely painted the inside of each side of the goalpost? That's the big question.
how he kicked the two most suspenseful field goals in the same damn game. That was so wild to watch too, because that was the other part of it was, this is what Detroit does. It's all suspense. It's all theatrics. They have it, man. I'm telling you, they got it. They got the grit. They got the show. They got all of it right now.
They definitely have it. And I ain't going to lie to you. The first time he kicked the field goal, his body, he had his arm like this.
Right.
So you can't see me if you're not looking at this. But the second time he did it, I think my wife caught me leaning in the bed, leaning to the side, looking this way. I'm like, is he going to? And she probably wondering what. She turned around and went right back to sleep. Like, I don't even want to know what you got going on over there at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? So, it reminded me of that movie, American Beauty. And that dude, you know what I'm saying? No, he catch me doing nothing, baby. I'm watching the field go. All right. So there's always two sides of this. There's jubilation on one side and there's misery on the other. But before we get into the misery of the Houston Texans, because they keep losing these close games, even though they did play very admirably last night. I think I got that word right. But anyway, here you go. Clint Kubiak and Bobby Slowick have something in common. At some point, they look like the hot guy. They look like who Ben Johnson was. In fact, you heard Bobby Slowick's name mentioned with Clint Kubiak. They mad as hell. I don't know if y'all mad at Clint Kubiak, but I know down in New Orleans, but I know for a fact they ready to run Bobby Slowick out of there. So y'all stop trying to think you could just hire these play callers and not hire leaders as your coach. Because now I'm hearing that people want Cliff Kingsbury back like they forgot what he did in Arizona. but in any way, listen to John Hickman real quick.
The Texans blow another lead due to second half offensive inefficiencies, scoring 0 points in the second half. I'm John Hickman of the Locked On Texans podcast, your team every day. Everything was rolling for the Houston Texans in the first half. 5 interceptions, 23 points. John Mechie got it rolling and going, and everything seemed to be on the up and up. And then the second half came around, and they were not able to score points. John Mechie went a whole quarter without a target. And you also saw the offensive line kind of break down. However, C.J. Stroud missing Tank Dell wide open in the end zone, for me, is the not made play of the game. You look at that being a 7-point swing, and that's a bigger uphill battle for the Detroit Lions. But credit to Detroit, they got it done. The Houston Texans came out on fire. Everything cooled off, and they were not able to sustain the things that made them successful in the first half. Please be sure to listen and watch the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast.
Ross Jackson, it seems like when teams lose, you can just substitute the person that covers the team, but say the same things. It's like
it does feel that way, huh?
It does not taking advantage of hot. Not taking advantage of stuff. I mean, it's just like at some point you're either going to be good or bad. And the thing here I want to hit with Detroit, remember how they lost in the NFC Championship game? Everybody said they should have won the game.
Yep.
And then they made these mistakes, and these mistakes cost them. Now, they made the mistakes again yesterday, but they figured out how to win. Do you think down the stretch, this is the question that I'll pose to you, do you think that means that have they learned their lesson, or is just like the same thing from last year, is just that San Francisco was a better team than the team they played last night in Houston?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's less that they learned a lesson, but more instead that they proved something to themselves. Now, when they do have that adversity later on that they will face when they get to the playoffs, they have something they can look back and say, well, that happened and we still did this, right? And then they'll have that belief. And so a lesson learned might be a part of it, but for me, it's more so establishing the belief that goes along with that energy, that grit, and everything that comes from that leadership that Dan Campbell brings. Hello, non-coordinator head coach. There's still value for that in the NFL. And I think that's the big thing here is now they have something to look back at and say, remember when we did this? Let's go and do that again.
There you go. So they hadn't learned the lesson coming in, but we saw them actually learn it last night.
Right.
And
yeah,
now
there you
they
go.
have that moving forward into their DNA. We're going to move forward. Talk about some good DNA. Christian McCaffrey came back and added a little bit to the 49ers, but left a few questions. We'll still talk about that and more here on a Monday edition of Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Look, man, whether your team is good or bad or not, our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all the tailgates, the touchdown celebrations, the losing, or the agonizing games that some of us witnessed yesterday, which is why they've created the Fan 5-hour energy shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. I love it. The energy shot made just for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. We definitely see you. 5-hour energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy, whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day, putting on makeup, and all of the things to-do list that seem to run a mile long. That's why the limited time edition Stand the Fan 5-hour energy shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Well, whatever it is, do it with 5-hour energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and it is shipped nationwide. Today's show is also sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports site in America, where millions get together and share billions of money that is given out. However, it's not you against those millions. It's just you against Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick 2 or more, between 2 and 6 player stat projections, either more or less. And that's how you win when you get them right. Make sure you tap into Prize Picks by downloading the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll repeat that. It's Locked On NFL after you download the app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure you go on over to Prize Picks, have you some fun. Even if your team is losing, you can still win you some of that Skrilla and get paid at Prize Picks. Make sure you use Locked On NFL as your promo code. All right, running along here, segment number 2 on Locked On NFL with my man Ross Jackson sitting in for Julian Council here on a Monday. Always glad to see Ross.
Good to see you, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, talk football. Christian McCaffrey made his way back. Some people thought, I hadn't realized that he hadn't played all year.
Right.
I don't know why I felt like he had played this year and then left. No, he made his debut. Statistically, it didn't go real well. Had about 39 yards on 13 carries, but they won. Vita Vea can make a whole bunch of people look like they aren't very good. Let's see how Eric Crocker feels about that today.
San Francisco 49ers stay on the trail of a very hot Arizona Cardinals team by traveling to Tampa Bay and beating a Buccaneers team by the final score of 23-20, and the 49ers did it in dramatic fashion. There are several key takeaways from this game. Guys that stepped up, you look at Brock Purdy, he had a terrific game through the air. You look at Juwan Jennings, a very explosive game for him and some key catches down the stretch. You look at the return of Christian McCaffrey, who totaled for over 100 yards. But I think a lot of the talk of town will be surrounding Jake Moody. The 49ers drafted him a year ago in the 3rd round. And as of right now, a guy coming back from an injury, it did not look great. Can the 49ers continue to count on this guy to win games for them or kick well down the stretch? He missed several kicks in this game. The 49ers should be worried a little bit with Jake Moody. And we know when it comes to the postseason, games will get close. Can you count on Jake Moody? A lot of good things going on for the 49ers right now. Not sure Jake Moody is one of them.
Offensive tackles, I understand. Kickers, you ought to be able to find one that can kick if you're a playoff team. That should not be a problem right now. But you think the 49ers made it all the way back, or is it just they just prolonging their own agony? They ain't going to be able to cut it.
I think it's incremental, right? I mean, that NFC West right now is very winnable for any of those 4 teams in that division. And of course, Arizona is doing the right things at the moment. Los Angeles is surging at the right time as well, or has had surged at the right time. And so now you got San Francisco kind of still in the conversation. So I don't think they should be counted out at all. I think getting Christian McCaffrey does help a lot. You mentioned he only had 38 rushing yards in this game, but he had over 60 receiving yards, over 100 total yards in the matchup as well. So you could see kind of the value, or not the value. We all know the value of Christian McCaffrey, but you can see very much the contribution that he's was able to bring in his debut. I think you're going to see that tick up more. And then once teams have to worry more about Christian McCaffrey, it's going to open up the game for the rest of those guys to where 3 points, 1 point, extra point, that ain't going to mean nothing to you when you're stacking up sevens. And so I think that that's the thing that you're looking for if you're the San Francisco 49ers, is to be able to do that. And if your defense is able to take control at the right time, like Nick Bosa and that San Francisco 49ers defense did. Nick Bosa did not tally a single pressure in all 3 quarters, first through third, but then got 2 pressures, including a sack and 9 pass rushing snaps in that last quarter. That ended up being a difference maker for them too. I think if you're able to compound all that, this is a team that's still very much a threat.
And they have the DNA. And we talked about that earlier, when knowing what you can do, when you can do it. Now, I will say this is a little bit of a consolation because Bucs fans ain't going to want to hear it. And the people that think Todd Bowles is horrible ain't going to want to hear it. But I'm going to tell you something. Losing the receivers that they lost on Monday night, a few weeks back, I am very, very impressed with the way that they played the last couple of weeks against a couple of contending teams. Tampa Bay, man, might be the best team that won't do nothing this year. They almost won yesterday. They should have beat Kansas City prior to that. I just got to give Todd Bowles and his crew, that next man up really does mean something in certain situations. Now, Philly, I know everybody wants to fire Sirianni. And trust me, I look for a reason every Monday that I wake up to talk about 2 entities, Nick Sirianni and Aaron Rodgers. All right. So I just talked about Sirianni without really having anything bad to say, because they actually won a game yesterday and took over, I believe, the NFC East because of their relative experience. When they play Washington, who lost to Pittsburgh, it's still close. I think Philly's going to win it. And it sounds like Lou DiBiase thinks the same thing. Listen to his enthusiasm.
Philadelphia Eagles are now in first place in the NFC East at 7-2 with a blowout win against the Dallas Cowboys. Might not seem like an overly impressive win against a bad team with a backup quarterback, but it's a big win for Jalen Hurts as he overcame pressure. That's something that's been his Achilles heel, I think, over the last 3 years, is playing against loaded boxes, simulated pressures. And that was a problem again in the first half. 2 turnovers against pressure where he wasn't seeing the field well. He was dropping his eyes, holding the football too long, not throwing with anticipation. And it was hurting this football team, but he overcame the disrespect. The Cowboys tried to force him to beat them throwing the ball. He did just that in the second quarter and the rest of the second half before he was benched because they were doing so well. Those 2 touchdowns to Johnny Wilson and Dallas Goedert, that showed the growth where he evades pressure inside the pocket, keeps his eyes up, downfield, finds the targets throwing on the run. That's his biggest problem, and today was a big step in fixing that.
I don't know about you, man, but I ain't never heard Louis so loud. The Cowboys probably just make you so hyped. He used words like blowout, and Louis. I ain't never heard Louis that animated. But I will tell you this: the Eagles are one of those teams. I said this about them in Pittsburgh about 3 weeks ago. Don't let them start getting their footing in this real ugly way, because they will be a dangerous team for people in the playoffs. Talk about that and the fact that the Dallas Cowboys are a hot mess.
Yeah, well, Dallas Cowboys indeed are a hot mess. There's absolutely no doubt about that, man. Like they are in dubious company right now. Multiple 20-point losses throughout this season. I think the most 20-point losses in a season, maybe tied that record, something like that. But regardless, and just an insane season from where we thought the Dallas Cowboys were going to be coming into week 1 to where they are here now. Post week 10, they are an entirely different team. I'll tell you, the last I saw Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles that animated was when he was calling for Nick Sirianni to be fired earlier this very same season. Now here they are 7-2, but it just goes to show you how much it's not just the results that go into, it's the process as well that goes into this whole thing. He was shouting out Jalen Hurts for navigating pressure and all these other things. Jalen Hurts was 7 of 9 for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns under pressure. Throwing 2 touchdowns, both of them came on the run. That was the first time this season that he's thrown a touchdown on the run. So you saw him kind of overcome some, kind of get the monkey off his back, if you will, kind of overcome some of those demons in this game. And it was Micah Parsons' first game back since week 4. So, you love seeing all that as well in terms of what Philly was able to navigate.
You hear what Micah Parsons said about Mike McCarthy? Have you heard it? Let me explain to you. They were asking him about McCarthy getting fired. He said, Mike can go wherever he wants to go. He said, I'm more worried about, he was talking about the offensive linemen, the guys that may retire, the long-time dudes that have been there forever. He was like, I'm more worried about them than anything else. they've done more in their career than Michael ever accomplished, and they are wearing him out for saying that right now. But basically what he's doing, he's taking up for his teammates, and he could have worded it differently and said something like, you know, we ain't worried about coaches, man. We got to have pride as players. That would have come across a little bit better. But I think is Dallas along with the Jaguars and the Saints as like, because it used to be, it used to be it was hands down the Carolina Panthers, but the Carolina Panthers won 2 games in a row, so we can't talk about them anymore. I think it's Dallas, the Giants, the Jaguars, the Saints.
Got to put the Titans in there still.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. They're absolutely bad. The Bears, believe it or not, no matter what their record, they're horrible right now too. I tell you, who ain't horrible anymore? The Arizona Cardinals.
Oh boy!
As a matter of fact, they might be all of our friends this morning. Because maybe now we'll get rid of Aaron Rodgers and his foolishness. I'm going to let Ross Jackson cook after we come back, and I'm going to let Alex Clancy cook. Alex Clancy makes an appearance on the show. But then we're going to let Ross Jackson do his thing about the Jets. Since Julian ain't here to do it, we're going to talk about the Jets. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Let me tell you about some Omaha steaks, man. I am a steak guy. Love me a good medium rare, and nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide all over the site at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. An extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you also by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And listen, man, if your team isn't winning, that's all right. You know you can always just bet against them, right? I do it all the time because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you actually made your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Now, you have to win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Ross Jackson, we're going to roll along here and we'll preview Monday Night Football here in just a minute between the Rams as well as Miami. We talked about the Lions. Can't lose if they want to. Talked about Christian McCaffrey coming back. Talked about all these teams trying to make a push towards the playoffs. And the Arizona Cardinals turned out Ross Jackson to be one of them. And to my surprise, they are consistently making Monty Ossenfort look exactly like who he is. And that is a GM that knows how to build a team.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked great. I think that he right now has led the Arizona Cardinals to the Houston Texans, Washington Commanders, Detroit Lions kind of category of rebuild, to where it's all happening a little bit earlier than maybe we expected it to happen. Detroit obviously took a couple more years and everything like that, but Washington feels a year ahead. Houston was a year ahead last year. I know they're struggling this year, but man, they're a much better team than they once were. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And now you're seeing the same thing from the Arizona Cardinals. He deserves a lot of credit for getting them there this quickly.
He deserves a lot of credit. Kyler Murray does too with the game that he played yesterday. Listen to my man Alex Clancy with that. I ain't never seen him this happy either, by the way, since we talking about first. Listen to Alex Clancy here from Locked On AZ Cardinals.
Well, that was about as close to perfect as the Arizona Cardinals could play for 60 minutes. Alex Clancy with Locked On Cardinals. The Cardinals get a convincing win, 31-6 over the New York Jets, to move to 6-4 ahead of their bye week in Week 11. Kyler Murray was sheer and utter perfection. 22 of 24, multiple touchdowns. The Cardinals are rolling. The defense is rolling. And the big takeaway from today for me, Monty Ossenfort hit on his first 2 drafts. Paris Johnson Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., Max Melton, Garrett Williams, Dadrian Taylor-Demerson with his first start today. The Arizona Cardinals are here. They're serious. And this is a turn for the better a lot sooner than many, like me, expected. But what we witnessed today was an Arizona Cardinals team absolutely dominating a star-studded offensive lineup to move to 6-4. That and more this week, Locked On Cardinals.
Ross Jackson, the floor is yours, sir.
Listen, for me, I think what the Arizona Cardinals did that's almost as important as proving their own value is proving that trying to build a team around a single player is not worth your time in professional sports. I don't care what team you're on. I don't care what team you are. I don't care who your ownership is. I don't care who the player is. I don't care what sport you play. You build a team. You build a unit. You don't build around one individual player. And that's exactly what the New York Jets tried to do. They went and got Aaron Rodgers and they signed all of his buddies. They hired all of his buddies to call his plays for him. And you know what they are? A terrible football team. They're a bad football team. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is a bad quarterback at this point in his career. You're talking about a guy that can't push the ball downfield. And I've watched that, Tony. I watched that here in New Orleans with Drew Brees when he wasn't able to push the ball downfield. But you know what he had? He had an expert scheme maker that was calling his plays that allowed them to be able to operate with more of a condensed offense, create yards after catch opportunities, an absolute genius in Sean Payton. You know what Aaron Rodgers doesn't have calling his plays?
Yep.
Anything close to that. And so if you're going to be a team that's going to stack up all around this one player and hedge your entire future on that player too, don't forget, this isn't just a team that paid Aaron Rodgers. This is a team that traded assets away to get to pay Aaron Rodgers. It was a terrible decision. And because of that terrible decision, the New York Jets are now a terrible football team. They just got exposed again in a 31-6 victory. If you didn't want to listen to it before, the Arizona Cardinals turned the volume way up, and you can't cover your ears anymore. This New York Jets team is a disaster. A disaster.
You cannot. I couldn't have said it better, but I'm going to try to add to it. You know what else Aaron Rodgers isn't? He's a great quarterback. He used to be. Mm-hmm. His career, talent-wise, I've never seen 3 people. I haven't seen 3 people be able to do what he used to do when he was throwing 40-some odd touchdowns with 4 interceptions. But what he lacks that a football team needs in its quarterback is either one or 2 things. You either have to be a great leader, but if you're not, you have to be able to delegate that authority to somebody else. If you're a quiet guy and you're not the dude to be all rah-rah, then, or if you're just not the dude that's going to make people run behind you, but you can really, really play, then the team has to have a dude that can rally those. Ray Lewis was that for a long time. Ed Reed was that for Baltimore. There have been, but the problem is, the Jets, the players, the locker room guys, they're going to look on TV and they're going to see their leader on McAfee today acting like ain't nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong. And it ain't his fault.
Yeah, it ain't his fault. It's all good. And I think people don't realize when it comes to quarterback play, it's not about your ability to. Jameis Winston would be a great leader if he stopped throwing interceptions. It's just that there's a quality that comes along with guys.
And he is a great leader despite the fact that he throws interceptions.
Right. And the problem, Ross, for me with Aaron is they need him to be better on the field, but more importantly, they have running backs. They have all of these things that can create these situations. They need him to be a leader off the field more. He's 40 years old. They are dying for someone to lead them correctly.
Yep.
But he's going to go on McAfee and act like ain't nothing going on because he's not a leader. And for me to go out and hitch everything to a 38-year-old Hall of Famer, I get it. But the bottom line is he ain't bring no leadership with him. In fact, he brought a whole bunch of people that are minions to him that ain't going to force him to be a leader either. And that's why the Jets are doomed. And if they're smart, they try to get out of this, but I don't know how they can because I think he's guaranteed again another next year. So,
yeah, they got to figure it out. They got to find some escape hatch, some ripcord, some ejection button. They got to figure something out because they got to do something. I'll tell you this: they had two options. They had two core options when it came to quarterback that year when they made that trade for Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron Rodgers and it was Derek Carr. Derek Carr was the other quarterback that had gotten a lot of attention from the New York Jets. And I'll tell you right now, the Jets would be a better team with Derek Carr than they are with Aaron Rodgers right now.
and they're saying
I
something.
100% believe that.
Yep, and that's saying something. I'll tell you what else is saying something. Ross Jackson is the truth, filling in for Julian Council, who's the truth. So that tells you that all we got is people on here, that's the truth. And you're going to get that twice a day here on Locked On NFL with my man Tyler Rowland, the madman, early in the morning. And when he gives it to you, you're going to hear it too. Even if you turn your volume down, you still going to hear Tyler Rowland telling you what's going on. Come on by the barbershop later on, man. We'll try to make sense out of a whole bunch of foolishness while we get up in people's business. That's twice a day here, wherever you get your podcast with the local experts from Locked On NFL. Can't miss it, man. Don't miss it.
Real quick.
Matter of fact, go ahead, brother.
Before we get out of here, Monday Night Football, I'm going to just tell you this. This is the Rams game. This is the Rams game. Rams and Dolphins. This is the Rams game 100%. I think they keep serving.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
We ain't hit that preview real quick. So behind the scene real quick, Ross, my boss. Ross let me know you ain't hit that preview real quick. So we talking so much about Aaron Rodgers. He let me know you ain't hit that preview. So guess what? I'm gonna hit that preview real quick. You ready for it? Now wait for it. You ain't gonna believe it when I tell you.
I'm ready.
You ain't ready.
Blink and you'll miss it.
This the Rams game. That's all I got for you. You talk about Cliff Notes? There you go, right there. Bam. I just took them right off the teacher's desk. This is the Rams game. I think the Dolphins get put out of their misery a little bit tonight, and they start looking towards next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they sat Tua down too to prevent not having him get a reoccurring injury because their future is the future.
Yeah, for sure. And they've got an interesting head coach conversation to have this offseason too. That you keep rolling with another one of those, incredible play callers, good script guys and stuff like that. Is he the leader that you need, even though he's a great mind? Like that's another one of those conversations, just like Slowick and others that ended up moving into maybe a year earlier than they needed to when it came to a big position.
No doubt about it. We'll be here tomorrow, man, like we always are. Make sure you check out all of your shows across the Locked On Podcast Network. Tony Wiggins, Ross Jackson, Julian Council, who ain't here. He's on a plane somewhere, but that's all good. We'll talk to you later.